Hello and welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life podcast. And I'm your host, Avik. So, here in this podcast, we explore the power of the mind in creating a fulfilling and successful life. As your host, and today we have a very special guest joining us. He's an empowerment coach with a passion for helping individuals unlock their full potential. So, please welcome Dean. So, Dean, it's a remarkable empowerment coach who works tirelessly with his clients to upgrade their thinking and achieve success in all areas of their lives. His unique approach combines a deep understanding of the mind and the power of the subconscious with a background in physical and sports rehabilitations. So, Dean utilizes a diverse range of techniques, including hypnotherapy, EFT, and psychic to help his clients overcome subconscious limiting beliefs that may be holding them back from reaching their goals. So, with this, I'll welcome Dean because it's a lot to tell about himself. He's genius, and there are a lot of things that I don't think I'll be able to cover up. So I'll actually over to you, Dean. Like if you can explain like about yourself, how you're feeling today, and your journey.
Yeah, no, thank you, Abbott. Thank you for having me on the show. So my background, I started in personal training. I started working with the physical body. So I traveled on cruise ships for 3.5 years around the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, working with a lot of American clients. So that's kind of really how I kind of got into the kind of high, kind of health, fitness, mindfulness kind of areas. So for me, and then when I came back to London in 2000, I kind of got into rehab. So I trained with, there's a teacher in the US called Paul Chek, very holistic based. And I did a lot of his kind of studies, and I kind of realized actually working with the body is really important, but in a unique way. Because often when we look at an injury, so my background is actually working with sports injuries, as you mentioned. And when we look at a lot of injuries, a lot of things we're treating the symptoms, not the cause. So through my studies, I actually learned to look at the whole body as a holistic model.
Sure.
So not just the physical body, but also the mind, how they interact with each other. And over the years, I realized actually my clients, they were getting better through the physical work I was doing, but they would always sabotage it in one way or another. And I realized actually it was their mind, what they were holding on to about maybe what caused injury, what was going on in their life was always then sabotaging what was happening to them. When we started addressing the mental emotional aspect of it, that's when clients started getting better quicker. Because I realized actually the mind for me was a kind of almost like the key to unlocking a lot of our problems, especially on a physical level. So for me, I then kind of shifted more now to where I am now as an empowerment coach, working with the mind because I believe, yes, the physical body is important, but for me, the mind is where the magic's at. The more you can work and understand with the mind, I think the more you can heal a lot of your physical problems as well. For me, for example, if I see problems on one side of the body, so the right side of the body is the masculine, the left side of the body is the feminine. If I see a history of injuries or conditions on one side of the body, 9 out of 10 times that goes back to a mental emotional issue that they're holding on to. And once that's resolved, then the physical then can then be dealt with. So for me, I still look at the physical, but for me, the mind is where I love to play, and that's why that's why I do.
That's great. That's great, and I guess it's a huge. I would say we should actually applaud for this. It's a huge thing,
Thank
and
you.
as you have mentioned about the mind, which is the most important part of our body. So my question to you will be like, can you explain like how mindfulness practices can benefit relationships and enhance our connection with others?
Yeah. I mean, mindfulness means to be aware, which means you need to be aware of yourself, but you also need to be aware of the world around you. And unfortunately, we live in such a fast-paced world nowadays where we're online all the time, or wanting to interact with people or things so much that we're not actually taking the time to be aware of ourselves, but also aware of the world around us. So for me, mindfulness is about slowing down, about actually doing less rather than doing more. So for me, there are two states of mind. There is a being state and there's a doing state. Too many people spend too much time doing and not enough time being. When we're being, we allow ourselves then to become into a state of mindfulness, where we become more aware of what's going on in our mind, what's going on in the world around us. So, for example, if you go to a coffee shop and all you do is just sit and watch, you will observe so much. I do this on a regular basis because for me, if I want to understand people, I need to observe people. And the more you watch people and you watch their habits and their behaviors and the way they interact with each other, the more you understand actually how human beings kind of think and actually what's important to them and what's not important to them. So for me, mindfulness is about bringing yourself back into a state of awareness by being, I suppose, still, quiet. So meditation obviously is a standard practice for that. But for me, it's also not just about that. It's also about being able to walk down. So in London, where I'm based, it's being able to walk down the busiest shopping street, Oxford Street in London, and not being triggered by the people around you. Because it can be quite a busy street, for example. So it's being able to walk down a busy street like that and not be triggered by the people around you or the sirens going off from a police car or whatever. For me, that's what true mindfulness really is. For me, it's a state of mind, not a state of being.
Wow, that's really very interesting. Like, wow. And like, what would be some specific mindfulness techniques or maybe exercises you can tell that individuals can incorporate into their daily lives just to for a meaningful relationships?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest and best ways of doing this is journaling. So taking time each day in the morning, in the evening, during the day, whenever it feels right for you, is to write down what is on your mind.
Okay.
See, whenever if our thoughts are just going around in our mind over and over again, they've got nowhere to go. Hence why we get high rates of depression and anxiety, because people don't know how to deal with their thoughts. Now, if you can then move your thoughts from your head down onto a piece of paper or even type it out on your computer, now you're shifting the energy of that thought or those kind of groups of thoughts that you have. So for me, journaling is probably one of the easiest ways of doing this. Another thing is then just talking. Again, especially when it comes to relationships, being able to talk and also have someone who's happy to listen also is so important. That's why coaching, what I do, therapy has grown so much over the last few years, is because people want to talk. As human beings, talking, communication is such a big part of who we are. So for me, any kind of form of communication, writing, speaking, will always actually help you become more aware of what's going on in your thoughts, what's going on in your head, even what's going on in your life. Because as you write these things out, as you speak them out, you start to notice patterns. And obviously, if you're in a conversation with someone else, like a coach or a therapist or even a friend, doesn't really matter. They can also then give you insights into other things that they're noticing. Again, you've got a different opinion. I remember hearing about a CEO in the US who would once a month have dinner with people who had a different opinion to him, because for him, he wanted to challenge his own beliefs. He wanted to see, what else, you know, here's how I think, but what if how I think is actually wrong? Again, this is the thing about journaling and everything. It doesn't mean that we're saying that what I'm thinking is right, but I've got to challenge my own beliefs. So he would do this once a month, where he would actually have people to dinner who had a whole different way of thinking to him. And through that process, he actually changed his thinking on certain topics, because he realized actually I was too narrow-minded in the way I was thinking about it. When someone gives you a different perspective, and this is for me is why these simple practices like writing and talking are probably a great foundation for people to just kind of start working on their mindfulness, rather than even thinking like meditation. Because I find a lot of people struggle with meditation because they struggle to go, okay, what am I meant to be doing? Or you don't have to do anything. That's the thing with meditation. But I think there's a lot of pressure on people thinking that meditation is the only way of being kind of mindful. For me, actually, I think journeying and speaking are probably better ways of doing that, I think, for most people, rather than just sitting there and keeping the mind quiet.
Okay. That's true as well. Like, what you say, like, suppose if you're sitting idle and if you're just, how can we train our minds that or maybe some thoughts are coming in and I want my focus to be just on one thing. So anything you want to suggest, like what one can do? Because most of us, I believe, we lose focus,
Yeah.
and that is the main reason of all this nuisance happening, or maybe challenges coming in, problems coming in. So how can we focus? Like, how can we train ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like I said, mentioned, we live in a world where we're constantly looking for stimulation, which is basically, when it comes back to the brain, we're looking for dopamine fix. We're basically looking for some kind of reward for what we're doing. So we're constantly seeking something in return for what we're doing. And the more we get into that kind of mindset, then the more we actually seek more and more. So this is why people become addicted to social media, to food, to drink, to drugs, or to whatever. So really, the simple way is you need to kind of capture mind at certain times. So, for example, a thought will only last for 90 seconds before it changes again. So, um, two people who do some really good techniques. One is called Mel Robbins. And so she has a simple technique called the 5 second rule. So whenever you find yourself in a loop where you're struggling, you're feeling depressed, anxious, or whatever it is, all you go is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that can be enough just to shift your mind from where it's focused on something that it shouldn't be. It can bring it into another space. Now you're giving yourself enough space to think about something different. To go, hold on a second. No, that thought doesn't help me. Me thinking in a negative pattern doesn't work. So that 5 second rule is, I think, one of the best techniques I've seen around for a long time that helps to interrupt that. Anything that interrupts your pattern, like I said, every 90 seconds, a new thought's coming in. If we don't interrupt the patterns will keep running in the same theme. So if you can interrupt your patterns by simple little things, so I've even seen like certain people that they put an elastic band around their wrist, and they can just pull that, and again that shifts them out of their mindset. So there's different ways that you can kind of interrupt your pattern. And the one other one is actually, this is more of a visualization for people who want to create what they want in the world. And I'm just trying to remember the lady. It will come back to me who it is. So basically, for 17 seconds, this is all it takes to visualize something. So when you're caught in a loop, for 17 seconds, I want you to focus on something positive. Anything, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's an experience that you had a week ago or even 10 years ago. The idea is for 17 seconds, you focus, you visualize in your mind something that you kind of feel good about. And again, in the same way, you're interrupting the pattern of the brain so that it doesn't get caught back up in the loop, so that you can then consciously then decide, do I want to go back into that same loop, or do I want to now start thinking something different? Again, everything in life comes back to choices. We choose to think a certain way. So we have to use these different techniques to break those patterns, because for the brain, it wants to save energy. It's easier to think negative about things rather than positively. So for the brain, it's always going to function on safety, security. Is there going to be danger? How do I save energy? I keep thinking about the same things that I always think about. Remember, we have, again, different people, I would say around about at least 40,000 thoughts per day. And 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that you had yesterday. So most people are thinking about the same things over and over again. So really, it's about coming up on a conscious level, being able to interrupt your patterns enough so that you break those habits that you normally have.
Wow. So that's a good technique. I mean, I really loved like what you mentioned. Like if we follow like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, this is the best thing. Actually, I liked it. So
Yeah,
this actually shift our focus from whatever we are thinking and what we want to do later on.
exactly.
That's the great thing. So with this, like my next question to you will be like, how can mindfulness like help us navigate challenging emotions and also conflicts within our relationships? So is there any specific strategies you can recommend like for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, first we need to understand emotions and feelings. Emotions and feelings are the language of our soul. So, and the other thing is that we put our emotions and feelings into categories. This is a good feeling, this is a bad one. For me, as soon as you do that, you're not understanding feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotion is in a language coming from your soul. So let's take anger, for example. If someone feels angry, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means something's wanting attention within you. So why am I feeling angry? So remember, the brain loves answering questions. So rather than going or allowing yourself to be angry, go, why am I angry? Because often a lot of our responses, or actually I would say reactions, are based on habit. So we get angry out of habit rather than actually going, why am I actually angry at? Is it actually right to be angry at this situation? Most people are not thinking that way. In the same way that with our good emotions, which come as well. Why am I happy? Do I actually recognize why I'm happy? With all of our emotions and feelings. So for me, it's first of all, we need to reframe how we think about our feelings and emotions. So again, like I was saying in one of the previous questions, is asking is the communication. So in a relationship, being able to communicate to family members, to your partner, or to friends, this is how I'm feeling. It's not saying a big part that most people struggle with. They make other people the reason why they feel a certain way. So I feel this way because you said this or you did this. For me, that's disempowerment. No one can make you feel a certain way. That's a choice. So if you want to be empowered by that, you go, okay, what you said or what you did made me feel angry, for example. That's okay. But what am I really angry at? Again, once we get down to it, often people go, I'm not really angry. I was confused. We often, for a lot of people, and actually I had a client, for example, so anger was one of her main emotions. So what she did, whenever she got angry, she gave her anger a name. So the name that she gave her anger was a name of someone that she highly respected in her life. So every time she got angry, let's just say the name was Sarah, for example. So a simple name. So whenever she got angry, it's like, oh, Sarah, you're here. Why? And she go, oh, okay. Now I'm actually in dialogue with Sarah, anger in my brain, and go, okay, so why are you here? What's your reason for showing up? And again, going back for the whole mindfulness kind of theme, when we become aware of our feelings and emotions, it's easy to understand them, but also then easier then to communicate to other people, this is why I'm feeling this way. Because it's never other people who make us feel this way. We get triggered by maybe what they do or what they say, but how we feel it is a subconscious reaction based on our past experiences being triggered by someone in the present. That's nothing to do with them, really, in most cases. That's normally to do with us, with our subconscious beliefs that we're holding on to, where anger was triggered at some point early on, and now in every situation in the present, anger will always be triggered until we question it, until we go, but why am I angry? Does that make sense?
Definitely, definitely, I would say.
Good. Yeah. So for me, it's a simple way of being able to just kind of bring it back down and go, look, feelings and emotions are not bad. They're the language of our soul. We need to understand them, but we need to take the time to actually understand what they mean and actually why do I feel this way? And again, going back to the journaling and talking, this is where we start to understand why we feel the way we do and why we have certain emotions, because we all have key emotions. So anger is a very common emotion. Mine's actually probably more frustration than anger. But if yours is anger, it's okay. It's okay to be angry, but also learn to build your relationship with your anger, because then you understand why you're being angry. When you're being angry, you go, okay, that makes more sense. Now I understand why I'm being angry. It's really nothing to do with the situation. The person is, I feel uncomfortable. In a lot of cases, it's something like anger. It's actually someone feels uncomfortable. They feel threatened. So the normal reaction is I need to respond in a way that kind of defends myself. So that's where anger comes in for a lot of people. So for me, it's being able to understand the emotions that you have and then communicate them, and then your relationship changes with them over time.
Perfect, perfect. I believe I really agree with you because so I'm just completing my recent book, so which is all about like the name of the book is, I'm just disclosing here itself. So the name of the book is Why Do We Feel Bad? So
Nice.
basically I have covered these things mostly, not exactly, but most things I have covered. So a few things I would like to quote here, like I have covered few things like it's in our mind only, how we are thinking, how we are synchronizing things, because things which we are which comes to our mind, it's like we can't do these things. So suppose there is a situation which is very hard or maybe challenging, so we think like we already predefined it that no, I can't do that. Instead
Yes.
we can exactly think like yes, I can do it. Yes, I can do it.
Yeah.
So these changes will actually help, and obviously, maybe these are some reasons. So I'll definitely share with you the new book link and
Yeah,
um,
thank you. Yeah,
so so that's it. But yes, definitely, it's really helpful what you have mentioned.
good.
So
Yeah, no, I love the whole concept of your book as well. And I think it's again, it's just reminding people that a lot of the ways that our thinking all stems from the first 7 years of our life. If
true.
we haven't challenged what we believe and what we think about, then our brain will just keep doing the same thing over and over again. This is why we have to slow down. This is why we have to be mindful of what we're thinking about, what we're speaking about. For example, when people are speaking about other people, for example, saying this person is did this person is this, and this, whatever it is, your brain thinks you're speaking about yourself. So it
True.
doesn't know the difference between you speaking about someone else or you speaking about yourself. It's the same thing for your brain. So it's all these kind of things that we don't realize that we're doing, that we're sabotaging our own growth and development because we're allowing ourselves to keep thinking in the same way. So I love exactly what your book's all about.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll share the link. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
So with this, like, because you are the experienced person, so in your experience, like, how does mindfulness contribute to the development of empathy and compassion in relationships? And also, like, if you can provide some examples, like how these qualities can transform our interactions with others.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we are saying is when you start to reframe and look at how you're feeling and everything, you start to understand how people feel. Remember, everyone's got a story. We all have the story of our life. And again, if you don't know someone's story, then and you're judging them based, one of my favorite quotes is, what someone else thinks about you is none of your business. Because I realize unless you know someone's story, you don't understand why they are the way that they are. So for me, in doing what I do, is that I've learned to understand people. I've spent the time to observe people, to listen to people. It's one of the biggest problems. Most people listen to reply rather than to listen to understand what someone's saying, right? So for me, it's being able to kind of go, okay, why is this person this way? Again, in relationships, communication is a big problem. We remember, again, a lot of this is already hardwired into our brain. Within 4 seconds of meeting someone, you've judged them. We're judging people all the time automatically without even thinking about it. Again, it's a safety and security mechanism within our brain, but we don't need to be doing it in the way that we're doing it now. So with every situation, you need to understand is, why is this person acting the way that they are? Let me try to understand their story, so I understand why they are behaving or speaking in a certain way. Once you understand that story, so for me, like, empathy is so much more important than compassion. That's just my way of looking, because compassion for me is almost like saying, I'm sorry to hear what happened to you. Empathy is going, wow, what a great opportunity to change your life. So for example, six, maybe 7 years ago, I had a client who got diagnosed with cancer, and I've been working with him for a few years. And he sent me an email, just said, just to let you know, I've just been diagnosed with liver cancer, and et cetera, et cetera. So my reply was, what an amazing opportunity to change your life. Because the typical response to him from every other single person in his life was, I'm so sorry to hear this, you know, how can I help you? Which is, again, for me, that's compassion. That's nice. But that's not empowering to people. For me, that's disempowering. It's saying, oh dear, this shouldn't have happened to you. It's the wrong thing to happen to you. For me, any disease, any, again, bad situation in life is always an opportunity to be empowered by it. So for him, when I first saw him after that, he said, that was probably the best reply that I could get from everybody, because it wasn't saying, look, oh, poor me because I've got cancer, you got to treat me a certain way. It's like, no, I want to learn from this experience. And he had a liver cancer, which a 5 year, I think anyone who survives more than 5 years, the percentage is very, very low. He actually survived 7 years before he died. And it was purely because he wasn't thinking about, the very typical example, especially for something like cancer, is we've got to fight this disease. Already you're putting your body into a stress state. If I'm fighting, it means I have to be in a stress state to do that. So for him, it was more a case of, no, I need to actually work with the cancer so that I understand what it is that it's teaching me. So for me, with all these situations, any situation in life is if you see a problem, you're missing an opportunity. So for everything, there's always a solution. There's always something that you can take from every situation. It's being able to understand what it is. And for me, when you come back to empathy, it's being able to understand the story of where that came from. If you understood this person's story, he grew up, he was bedridden when he was younger because he had asthma problems. So he already had the resilience within him to deal with these kind of illnesses. So when this one came, it wasn't a big challenge for him. He was thinking very, very different to the average person. And for me, that's what comes back to also having empathy for yourself as well, because we put ourselves down way too much sometimes. Hence why we sabotage our own kind of lives too much, is because we don't believe that we're worthy of it. For me, most people are living the life that they're living rather than the life that they want. It's because they don't believe that they're worthy of living the life that they really want, subconsciously, of course. So they think they're doing the right things, but subconsciously their brain's saying, no, you don't believe that. You're not worthy. You don't even feel like you want that. So first, always with empathy, have empathy for yourself. The more you do that with yourself, then the more you'll be empathetic with other people, right?
Definitely, definitely. This is so self thing is the first priority, I would say. Yeah, definitely. So, like mindful communication is also a crucial aspect for any healthy relationships. So, could you share some tips or tools for improving the communication through mindfulness? Like, it will be easier.
Yeah, I mean, remember, our thoughts and words basically create the world that we live in. So for me, with the empathy, with mindfulness, how am I speaking to myself when I've done something wrong or my life's not going well? Most people go, oh, they play. So in if you're aware of Carl Jung's archetypes, so very typical ones are the poor me, the victim. We often play the victim, the poor me. It's being able to catch yourself when you go into that kind of way of thinking, going, you know what, it's okay, you've got this. I think you mentioned it just before about with your book and everything. It's reminding people is that when you're in a situation, is that you speak to yourself in a way that goes, hey, you've got this, don't worry. I don't know all the answers right now, but the answers will come. If we keep trusting that the right things will happen, then I know something's going to change from the situation. And again, it's not easy to do, right? This is a process you have to go. Again, the brain needs repetition. So we have to do this enough times so that your brain goes, okay, this is a normal way of thinking. So for me, I use techniques like Psych-K and the EFT to kind of make that happen a little bit quicker. But everything that you're trying to do, you have to do it for repetition. And going back to my experience in working with the physical body, we found, or the research showed, if you wanted to create a new habit, it would take normally around about 300 repetitions to do that. But if
Okay.
you wanted to change an old pattern in the nervous system, it could take up to 3,000 repetitions to change that. So it just makes people understand that when you're looking to change old habits and behaviors, it can take a long time sometimes to do that. And that's often why people don't do the work long enough to get the changes that they want. It means that you have to do this often for a very long time before you really, I suppose, start living and being that person that you're trying to become, right? So for me, it's kind of like this is a process that we all have to go through. It's just whether you're willing to put the work in to do it. That's all.
Correct. Definitely. So with this,
Yeah.
one thing is also coming to my mind, like as we are also mentioning about the self thing. So how this self awareness and self care in cultivating the successful relationship. So what is the role it plays, and also like how mindfulness I mean contribute to self awareness, and how can it integrate to self care practices in our own relationships dynamics.
Yeah. I think, for me, self-worth, self-love is what starts this whole process. So, Psych-K, one of the techniques I use. So the way it works is that we will muscle test. So you put your arm out and we will muscle test. So your body can't lie. So it's called kinesiology. So basically, if we test beliefs, and two beliefs that I always test for every single client is I love myself and I hate myself. And in over 10 years of doing it, I think I probably can count on one hand how many people actually tested positive for I love myself and negative for I hate myself. The majority of people test positive for I hate myself and test negative for I love myself, or they test positive for both. And the ones who normally test positive for both have normally done some kind of work on themselves. So they've been doing some personal development work over a period of time, maybe in different parts of their life. But they're normally the ones who test positive for I love myself and I hate myself. So for me, it always comes back. If you can't love yourself, you can't love someone else. As much as we can say, I love you, we're almost, our brain's going, no, that can't be possible because you don't love yourself. How, it's going back to the kind of the aeroplane analogy. You
Correct.
can't put a mask on, you need to put the mask on yourself first before you put it on someone else. So if you can't love yourself, then when you say I love you to anybody else, in a sense, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to that person because it's coming from a place of not, or in a sense, a place of hate rather than a place of love. So for me, really, if we want to improve our relationships, we need to learn to love ourselves first of all. We need to make sure that we feel worthy. Even in intimate relationships, most people don't feel worthy to be in the relationship that they're in. They're in the relationship because they think it's going to help them or save them in some way, rather than actually adding value to it. This is why, going back to like the communication, a lot of people are not communicating because they feel if I'm too honest in a relationship, this person may not like me, they may not love me. Going back to the empathy, right? If
Correct.
if you have empathy for yourself and you have empathy for other people, hopefully you'll attract that. Remember, we attract normally what we are ideally. Again, on a soul level, we say no, there's certain lessons that we need to learn, but as a general rule of thumb, we attract what we are. So if you can learn to love yourself, there's more or higher chance that you attract someone who will love you also in a relationship. That then makes the empathy, the communication, the mindfulness a lot easier then to do. Remember, you can't be in a relationship where only one person's working on themselves. You need to be in a relationship where both people work. And this is not just intimate relationships. This is friendships. My circle of friends around me, or my closest friends around me, they all do work on themselves also. So for me, that's really important. And again, in intimate relationships, I only want to be in relationships with people who are looking to upgrade themselves also. Because if only one person's doing the work, at some point, problems are going to show up in the relationship. It doesn't matter how much work that person's done, they can't override not the negative, but the sabotaging behaviors of the other person, and it will create a problem in that relationship. So for me, learn to love yourself more and more, and you'll attract more people around you who love themselves also. That then makes it easier then for you to have better relationships. Again, with relationships this is different because we come from different cultures, right? So in Indian cultures, very much is more stay in a relationship for a long period of time, right? Whereas UK, that used to be, but now, in the West, 50% of marriages ends in divorce.
True.
So that whole kind of mindset is shifting, is actually what is a relationship? Again, because we put so much pressure on that we have to be with one person. Again, is it right or wrong? It doesn't really matter. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, again, there's a lot of pressure on people to make it work. So for me, it's like, if a relationship can help you grow and you can help that person grow also, then that relationship should carry on. But if neither of you are growing in the relationship, then I don't see the benefit of the relationship. And again, for me, this goes with family, with friends, with everybody. If you're both not adding value to the relationship, then the value of the relationship is already lost.
True.
Yeah, I mean that's how, I don't know. From it'd be interesting to hear your kind of perspective. Coming from a different culture to my own.
But definitely it's the exact thing, because if we are not, both are not benefiting or adding value to any relationship, so it means it's only one-sided. So
Yeah,
definitely, so it's true, it's true.
yeah, exactly. So I think, again, it's being able to have, going back to the whole thing about mindfulness and awareness, it's being able to have that awareness, to have the conversation with someone saying, look, here's where I'm at. Even if we take it to intimacy in a relationship, and again, from my own experience, I would say that the majority of relationships break down because there's a problem in the bedroom.
True.
Because it's one area where people do not communicate. They're scared to communicate. They're scared to say, oh, actually, I like this, I don't like this.
True.
So for me, it's when we're talking about mindfulness, In a relationship, it's being able to do that in the bedroom, which is where most people will struggle to do that.
Right.
For me, if you can do that in the bedroom, that will work in the rest of the relationship, because that's probably that's where we're naked, we're exposed to the other person. So if you can be comfortable expressing who you are there, for me, it makes a big difference in the rest of the relationship.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, like as you have mentioned this, so mindfulness is like often associated with being present in the moment, right? So now, how does this presence translate into creating a deeper connection, or maybe intimacy within the romantic relationships?
Yeah.
And like any specific practices that couples can engage in together?
So have you heard of the five love languages?
Maybe if you can enlighten.
Okay, so it's an online questionnaire that you can do whether you're single or in a relationship, and basically it asks you questions. And so basically, we each have a dominant love language. So, for example, it can be physical touch. So for some people, they need hugs, they need an arm around them, whatever. That's important for them. For other people, it can be words of affirmation. They need from their partner, but also from themselves. So the love language is not just about for your partner, but it's also for yourself. How do I make myself feel good? So the love language, again, it's a free questionnaire that people can do online. It's a great one for people in relationships to understand what's important for the other person, and obviously then for each other. So one is like, for example, gifts,
Hmm.
which I mean we joke sometimes, but we say that's normally women love that one. But I think there's men also like that one. But I think the two most common ones are words of affirmation and physical touch. There's another one which is about having time with that person. So space, them being in the same space.
Correct.
Um, but for me, the love languages, I think, is probably one of the best tools I know for people in relationships. Because I think once you understand what's important to the other person and they understand what's important to you, and you start applying that, for me, the level of the relationship goes straight up, straight away. Again, we can also look at the masculine and feminine, because there's that interplay playing out between the masculine and feminine. So within each of us, we have the masculine and feminine. But in a relationship, it's being able for a man to surrender. So if you look at the work of someone like David Data,
Hmm.
so a very simple technique for couples to do is just, again, you can do this in the evening before you go to sleep, is that you just sit in front of each other and you just stare into each other's eyes. There's no communication. You just take maybe a minute, 2 minutes. Again, if you've never done it before, start quite short, because it can be uncomfortable. But over time, you build up and you maybe spend like 5, 10 minutes just looking into your partner's eyes. Because as different teachers have said, the eyes are the windows to the soul. So when you're looking into your partner's eyes and they're looking into your eyes, you're looking into the soul of that person. So for me, again, in relationship, is another great way of connecting with your partner, is just not even communicating, but just connecting. Holding hands when you go out during your day. All these little things make a difference, because remember, the first system in the body to be created is a nervous system. This is why touch is so important. Even the research shows with babies who weren't touched or held when they were younger often have mental emotional problems later on in life. So we know that touch for as human beings is so important. A massage, but even just a hug. I mean, as we know, with a hug, it releases oxytocin. So we know all these kind of things are so important to us, but we need to understand what's important to our partner. What does my partner like? For a woman to feel safe in a relationship, she needs to feel loved. And for a man to feel safe in a relationship, he needs to feel respected. So again, if I look at your culture, I think that's where it works really well. You see the women, they normally put their men up on pedestals. They go, this is my man, he's amazing, he does this, he does this. And again, just from my interactions with especially probably more Eastern kind of cultures, the women are very much more, the men will go, my wife is amazing. I love her. I support her. So for me, I see that a lot more in Eastern cultures than I do in Western cultures. Again, it's just what we've been taught over life. But for me, those little kind of tools like that, they can make such a difference in relationship. It's not complex things. Communication, touch, just spending time with each other. These are the simple things that we kind of forget about, but they're the things that I kind of feel actually make the biggest difference in relationships.
That's really great. Like it's a lot of information. Like I would say, like uh, I believe like most of the couples who will be who are the listeners are definitely gonna try this. And yes, I'll definitely recommend like just focus on things and definitely give some time for yourself and for your partner. Definitely things will gonna change. And with this, definitely that brings us at the end of another enlightening episode of Healthy Mind and Healthy Life. Like I hope like you have found our discussion with Dean, the empowerment coach, truly inspiring and thought provoking. So always remember that your mind is a powerful tool that can shape your reality and determine the quality of your life. So it's always essential to nurture and prioritize your mental well-being, as it lays the foundation of your personal growth, success, and overall happiness. So we encourage you to reflect on the insights shared today and take actionable steps towards your thinking, because it's most important, which is our mind. So whether it's identifying and changing like limiting beliefs and uh, practicing self-care, or maybe embracing your authentic self, so every small step that you take will bring you closer to a healthier mind and also fulfilling your life. So, if you have enjoyed this episode and want to continue exploring the fascinating world of personal development, so please be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And we have an incredible lineup of guests and topics lined up for future episodes that will empower and inspire you on your journey. And always we appreciate your support and feedback. So if you have any questions or suggestions, or maybe you want to share your stories, please reach out to us through our website and social media channels. Your involvement would definitely make this podcast truly meaningful. So thank you for joining on this episode today. Until next time, remember to prioritize your mental well-being and embrace your potential, true potential, and create the life you truly desire. So thank you. And thank you, Dean, for joining in the show and making us like understand with a lot of information and the insights about things we just discussed today. So thank you
My
for
pleasure, Avik. Really great to be connected with you.
thank you, Dean.